Hello everybody and welcome to my studio. My name is Lonna. I am an acrylic artist. I just want to say thanks for stopping in my studio today. I hope you're going to grab your paints and paint along. We're going to be doing this project right here. I've titled it My Favorite Cup of Joe. I love doing still lifes, and I love that this one we're looking down into the coffee cup. It's not the side view like you see on most still lifes. I just think it's fun. It's sitting on a wood table with these just playful flowers beside it. I just think it is a really cool design, and I can't wait to paint it with you. I hope you're going to grab your paints and paint along. I'm going to be using Deco Art Americana acrylic paints, but you can use whatever paints that you want. I'm on an 8x10 canvas panel, and again, you can use whatever surface you want. So let's grab all of our supplies and let's get painting my favorite cup of Joe. Alright, we're going to start this project. I have an 8x10 canvas panel, and now normally when I paint on a canvas panel I like to add another couple layers of gesso onto it before I start painting. This one, however, I did not. I do want to have a little bit more texture in this painting, so all I did was take my really fine sanding pad and give it a really good sanding to get some of that more raised stuff off of there, just to make it, I still want to feel that texture. I don't want it all, you know, really bumpy. Alright, so we're going to take some black paint. I'll make sure this one's been opened. And we're going to base coat this in with black to start with. And then we'll build our colors on top of this. Now I could draw in my elements and paint around the elements with black. I might do that, I might not. I haven't decided yet. As I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm thinking maybe there's one particular element that I probably should try and paint around. Otherwise we might have a few layers to bring that up. But I honestly think that we can bring it up okay with some gray. So I'm just going to go with it and just paint the entire background black. I think just one coat should be enough because we're putting lots of layers on top of this, or you know, other layers on top of it. I shouldn't say lots, but my roller is a little bit too much moisture in it there. It's okay if you see a little bit of the background on this layer of black. Just get a good coating on there. Now we want this to get dry completely before we move on to any other steps. Alright, my painting is put on with, or my surface is dry. I'll spit it out there in just a minute. So I'm taking a lid to a bowl that I have, and I'm just going to trace around it for my circle. And I'll tell you what size this lid is. It is a 5-inch lid, so if you take your compass and set it at 2.5, find your middle, wherever you want your middle point to be, and then draw your circle with your compass. You can do it that way, which probably would have been a little bit better because I don't think I got this side straight down here. Alright, we'll just go with that right there. Now on my other sides, which will be my horizontal sides, I want to add some lines. I'll grab my T-square here. So I want to add some lines on here for some boards. So this is, I'm not really going to, you know, worry about if they're the same thickness or whatever. I'm just going to kind of eyeball them. Maybe down this way a little bit. We'll just do 3 boards. You can have 4 boards. Whatever appeals to you. So we just want to create the look of some boards on here. and get our circle in place. Okay, we're going to work on the boards first and get them done. Okay, we're going to begin painting in our background to look like boards. Now you can do this in many ways. I just like to use a dry. You can use an old brush, any kind of brush that you want to use. This is an encaustic brush by Dynasty. This one is a 1-inch size, but you can use any type of dry brush, even an old 1-inch brush, you know, as long as you're using it dry. This is why we left the texture on the canvas pretty much so it can start grabbing some of this paint. Okay, I'm going to turn it, well, maybe not. I was going to turn it so that it was going this way where I could pull, but I think I'm going to go across like this. So I've only got black and white on my palette. We're just going to create some gray, old gray wood here. So I'm going to start with a little bit of white and a tiny little bit of black. Make a gray color, maybe a little bit more. We'll make like a medium gray color there, medium to light. And I'm just going to start dragging this across. I'm not going to worry about getting it in my circle. My circle is just basically there for me for placement. We're going to be painting that circle in. If you give more pressure, you're going to leave more paint behind, which is super cool. I love it when it does that. And we're going to go down each section, create some lovely little wood effects with this gray color, which is almost a light gray color once we applied it to this black here. Now if you get too much of your black covered up, not a problem at all, because we can bring our black back in. Alright, I'm going to wipe my brush out because I want to go with just white. It's still got a little bit of that gray in there, so it's still going to blend. So I want this to stand a little bit more on top than that other one. Put some white in here. This is a very simple way to do wood grain, especially on a canvas. It's easy because the canvas wants to pull at the paint, so that makes it really cool. And I can still see my lines. We're going to have to paint those lines in with some black. Ooh, that's a lot right there. I'm definitely going to have to break that up with some black. Alright, I'm going to clean my brush out as best I can, get all that light color out of there, because I want to grab black now. This is where you want to add your black back in where you need it, so I want to break some of this up. And I'm up on the chisel edge this time instead of laying my brush flat and just pulling it through, creating some darker areas in here. It's your wood. It can look any way that you want. And we might even put a little bit of blue or purple in our wood, I think, because we're going to have those colors, one of those two colors in our painting. I'm not really sure which one yet, but okay, I'm going to wipe that off because that picked up a bunch of that white right there, and a little bit more, and just create some. I just want to break some of those, whew, or really break some of those up. That was a lot. Okay, this is all background stuff, so I really need you to not overly think this, okay? So then I generally take a flat brush. So let me grab a flat brush. This is how I've done mine for eons of years. I like to take my black and just go along the edge and create some texture. Sometimes I use a round brush and do it with a round brush. I'm going to do it with this flat brush today and create some. This isn't the only place we're going to create texture, so we just need that's a lot right there, so I'm going to take some of that down, grab a little bit of white and tap a little bit of white along there. That's going to help break it up a little bit too if it gets too intense and too solid of a line. Alright, let's go along the end edges. I want to kind of go along it, pat it along, and then pull some in, create some little textury stuff on the ends here. And it doesn't have to be the whole edge of it, can just be in a few places. On each one of these boards I can still see my line here. Okay, so we did that edge. We're going to do this edge. I'm just using the chisel edge of my brush and some black paint. That's all I'm doing. Okay. I don't have to go very far with that one because our plate is there. Okay. Now if you want to come with this chisel brush and create some elements in your background, this is how you can get some really sharp defined cracks in your board. Some of this, all of that will be covered up there, so you don't have to worry too much about that. So, you know, we put that black in with that scruffy type brush, but now we can just go in and add, you know, a few more random places, and we've got to create our lines here. Okay, you can also, on those black lines and things that you've done, create some highlight. But first we're going to go in and create this line. I probably really didn't need to wash my brush out because we're going to load it up with some black. Now you can use a round brush to do this. I'm going to follow my line, and I don't want it to be perfect by any means, so I'm going to, you know, give it a slight little movement here and there. Make sure I've got my line right here. Okay, then I've got this one. Okay, it goes over here, it looks like. Nope, right there. Okay, so I've got my separation for my boards, and we want to make sure that we can see those. So we're going to take our white and run along beside it, chisel edge. Again, you can use a round brush or a fine detail brush to do this. This is the edge of it over here. So we're just going to go along beside it. Picked up a little black there. Wipe that off because I don't want the black in my brush. That black was still pretty wet there. Okay, this is where that line is. And then you can go in here on top of some of your ones that you put in and add a little bit of highlight on a few of those. Just run that chisel edge right next to some of those. Okay, I think we'll do the highlight on both sides here. And this is where you can really kind of define that edge a little bit more. And then right here, I need to put the black in the middle there. So if you feel like your background is just too dark, you can go back in with some white and lighten up in a few places. I'm just using what's left on my brush from doing that stuff, and I'm also going to add a little bit of highlight along some of my edges here, my edge lines. So you can do as little or as much detail on yours as you want to. Okay, the more detail that you add, the more realistic it looks. But again, this is going to push back into the background after we get some of our Now I'm being mindful of which side, or not, which side I'm putting the highlight, because it's all on the top side here, so I want to make sure it's on the top side over here. And just create a few little highlights. And then I'm going to go along. This is where you might want a little bit of a round brush. I'm just going to use the corner and just kind of scumble in a little bit of highlight on the edge of the board here. I'm not sure how well you can see that. I'm going to get my rotating easel out here in a minute. But a round brush will work pretty well doing this as well. Okay, a little bit there, and we'll do a little bit down here. Just hit and miss, kind of scumbling it across. Just on the corner of my brush here. Okay, easy peasy. Alright, I think I'm going to put my black line back a little bit darker. I might have to make that a little lighter right next to that line. I really want this to be dark. So my line goes through there. Should be right about here, I think. Not sure that meets up where it should be. And this will be covered up a little bit though, so yep. Should be that line right there. So that should have a little bit of highlight next to it. Okay. So again, if your separations get lost, you feel like they're just too dark, you feel like it's too dark next to them, we're going to just lighten up right next to them. Oops, down here. You can do some dragging this way, but I wouldn't overdo the dragging going up horizontally. But if you bring some, or vertically, if you bring some vertically, go back over it with a horizontal brush. Okay. Alright. That was quite the boldness there. But that'll be covered up, so I'm not worried about it. Okay, that looks pretty good for the background. We're just dry brushing a light gray, it's a white, and some black. That's all we're doing. We're just taking black and white and creating some different values within this. And actually this down here, I feel like this gray right here needs to be broke up a little bit. So I'm going to break it up with some white. And maybe a little bit of black through here. Okay, that looks a little bit better. It was a little bit too harsh of a line. Okay, anywhere you feel like you want to add more, just keep going until you're happy with it. I'm going to leave it alone because I think it looks pretty good. If I need to add something at the end, some brightness or some darkening or something like that, I can do that at the end. You could also use scrapbooking paper that is already wood grain and adhere it to your canvas or to your wood surface, and you'll already have your wood grain on there, and you'll just have to draw your lines on there and get going. I love painting on scrapbook paper because you've got a ready-made background just the way that you want it, and then you're ready to go and start painting. So let's get ready to add the rest of our line drawing on here and start painting. Okay, first thing I want to do, well actually I don't want to make a circle in there yet. I'm going to go ahead and paint this in with some gray. A light, let's see what color. I think a light gray. You could make like a gray sky. If you have gray sky, grab that and paint it in with that if you want to. I'm just going to paint it in with a gray value. And I'm going to get my wheel out. I'm going to put one quick coat in here. I'll go off camera and apply a second coat on here just to show you what I want you to do. I want you to paint this circle in right here, and then we'll add our other details on here, because we can't really put the rest of the line drawing on here until we get this in. So I'm just mixing up my black and my white to make a light gray, and I'm painting in the circle. Now you can give this plate as much characteristics as you would like. You know, beveled edges or scalloped edges, whatever you want to do to make it more interesting. Just follow right along your line. I don't have tons of paint on my brush, but I do have a little bit of moisture in there so that I can move this paint. Okay, we want it to be a fairly good circle, so that's why I say if you have trouble making your circle very good, then that's where you can make the scalloped edges on yours and make it a little more interesting. If you have a stencil that is this size, it would be a good opportunity to use it. Okay, that's pretty good. I'll probably apply a second coat on there once it gets dry, but I'm going to let that get dry. I think I will apply a second light coat on there, and then I'm going to get the rest of my line drawing on here, and I'll show you how I make my circles on top of this plate, because it's going to be looking like we're looking down into a cup of coffee here. Okay, so I've decided the gray might be a little bit too dark, so let's put a layer of white on top of this gray. I started to put my blue around the outside edge there. Decided to quickly change this to white. Then we'll stencil on to the plate, and then we will So I do want you to put the gray on first, because I think that's going to be a good undercoat for white. Otherwise you'll have to take several coats of white to bring this out. And we might actually just tint that white with the slightest of blue. So let me just put some on my brush and put it in here. This is that Provence sky. And we'll just tint this, or maybe really tint it, a light blue. You can mix the paint on your palette, but since my paint was already wet right here on my surface, this was an easier way for me to go. Just put a little bit of blue tint in there, and then when we add a highlight on here, it will stand on top more. So we're going to mix white with just a tiny little bit of that Provence Sky and get that on there. So it's just got a little bit of a blue tinge to it. And then while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and paint the outside edge of this plate blue, and I'm going to mix the two blues together, my Provence Sky and my Vivid Blue. We'll just do kind of like an equal mix, and we'll paint it along the outside edge here. Now when we put our cup on here, the handle, we may have to adjust some of this in the background. So just go around it with your blue mix, round brush. Need a little bit of water. Grab both paints, mix, mix, mix. You got to have that water mixed in there, because if you don't, you're going to struggle to get this paint on. I got a little wide there, so oops. Definitely going to be doing some cleaning up here. Okay, let me do just a little bit of straightening out here. Damp brush, go in here, and while your paint's wet, so if you can only work a little bit of paint at a time, then do that, and just kind of smooth that out. Get any fat areas you don't like kind of smoothed out. It's got a little fat down here, so okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to get this dry, and then we're going to stencil onto the plate. The stenciling, totally optional. If it's something that you do not want to do, then by all means you can omit it from your painting. Okay, mine's dry now, so I want to stencil in here, and I'm going to use my two blues like we used on the background, so I'm just going to pick them both up and blend them on my brush, maybe a little bit more of the Vivid Blue. Grab a dry paper towel and tap some of that paint off. Maybe just a little bit more of the Vivid Blue. Tap, tap, tap. Now, it's okay if we go out onto our line out there, but we don't want to come out past our plate. So I'm just going to start. I might take a little bit of that off. And then I'm just going to start swirling. And you can go one way, you can go the other way. This is currently my swirl stencil on my website, but there are many stencil options out there, and you do not have to stencil the same stencil that I'm using. If there's something that you like, you've got a stencil that you think would be perfect, it's got little flowers on it or something like that, then use that. I just wanted something fun on here. Alright, let's see how that looks. That looks pretty darn cute. Let's go with that. So I'm going to be done with my stencil now, and I want to get this dry so that I can add my circle for my cup on here. So let me get it dry. Let's add our circle that's going to be for our cup. I'm going to use this circle template, but you can find an object in your home that has the same kind of size that you want and add that on. So I'm going to offset it from the center. It's going to be kind of scooted over on the plate a little bit. not directly in the center of it. And I'm going to just grab a small pencil, and maybe I'll use I'm going to use this pencil because it will remove with paint or water, and even though it's pink, it'll be okay. So I'm going to put a circle right here, and hopefully I can see that. Let me try green. My paint might not have been completely dry, but there we go. I think you can see that circle okay right there. So we're going to start by painting in the inside of the cup to start our coffee look. And I think we might go with straight cocoa. Let's see how that's going to look. Might want to go with another color because I'm going to have to add some white to it because cocoa is a little bit of see-through and we don't want to see all that stencil work we put in there. So let's mix cocoa and white for our first layer and cover up some of that blue in there. And that circle template that I just used, you could actually use that as a stencil if you want to. Tape off well around it so you don't get into another circle, and you can use it to paint your circle in. I got my circle template at Michael's, but I'm sure Hobby Lobby sells it, probably Walmart, I don't know. Office Supply Place may sell them because you'll probably find them in the fine art or the drafting area of Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I do want to stay within that circle. I don't want it to get bigger. Alright, that's a good first coat for us right there. And we will be adding lots more to that, so we may not even need a second coat on that. We'll have to decide that in a minute. But while that is drying, I want to take my chalk pencil and draw my my handle here. Now we're just seeing a tiny bit of the handle, so it's coming off of the side of the cup here. Let me see if my green one will show up better. Okay, we're not going to make it real long. And then this kind of curves over here. Okay, so we want to paint that in with our blue and white mix. Oop, that was gray. We don't want gray. Grab some white and a little bit of this blue, and we'll paint this handle in right here. And it will take a couple of coats to paint this in, so we're just seeing a small portion of the handle. Okay, I will definitely have to paint that in a couple of times. So while that's drying, I'm going to paint in the edge of the cup. That same color we put around the outside edge. Okay, so we're just going to follow our circle here. We're just seeing the edge of the cup. Try to keep the pressure on the brush the same as you go around, so the thickness of your circle will stay the same. I got a little wide. Where did I get a little wide? Up here. So damp brush, I'm just going to remove a little bit there. And then I'm going to outline the handle. I still need to paint a second layer of the white in here, but we can see the handle a little bit better there now. So let me go with my white and a little bit of that blue. Oh, that was a lot of blue. I think it'll be alright if it's got a lot of blue in it. No problem. We'll get a second coat on here. And there we can see our handle now. So it looks like we've got all of our base coats in here. And everything's looking pretty good so far. Alright, I'm coming back with a second coat of just cocoa because I want that to be darker in there, so we don't have to build so many layers when we come to add our details on here. So this is just straight cocoa. The first layer had some white mixed in it so I could cover up some of my Alright, that looks pretty darn good there. And I did put an extra layer on my cup handle and on the blue lines that come out from it, so we're good there. Alright, I did some shading under here, so I'm going to repeat it so I can show you what I did, but you'll want to do it twice. So I'm going to take some of my black and kind of work it into my brush to make it not super incredibly a lot on my brush, kind of thin and washy on my brush. I'm going to spritz my palette here so I can have some water. And then just go right underneath that blue line, and we're just doing the lower part of the plate, just slightly up the edges, not very far, but down here we want to bring it down a little bit to create that nice little shadow right there coming from the plate, and that's going to give us tons of realism right there. Alright, let's work on the plate itself and start adding a little bit of shading on here. Okay, I want to start creating shadow from the cup here because we've got shadow from the plate down here, so we need some shadow from the cup and around the handle a little bit. So I'm going to start with a little bit of, well, I'm going to try to start with a little bit of light gray mix on my brush. I thought about using some Payne's gray, but I don't know. So we're using mostly white with just a small amount of some black. So right here I'm mixing it on my palette. It is the lightest of grays. Okay, I'm not really sure if this is going to be the shade that I want to use on here. No, it's not, because we added that blue to our background. So we'll take that off. That's not going to work out. So I'm going to go with some Payne's gray because it has a little bit of blue tint in it. So I'm really working it into my brush. I'll come over here and do it so you can see what I'm doing. My brush is wet, so I've got a little bit of extra moisture in it, and I'm really working that paint so that it joins with that moisture in my brush, but I'm still keeping it just on that edge. So we'll see how this is going to look. We're going to add some shadow on this side, kind of like we're going to mimic down there, and we're going to go up to the handle and lay your brush flat and give it some nice transition. We're going to go about the same that we went over here, and I definitely want to bring that down on the plate, so we want to walk that down. Our shadow edge is down here. That's very choppy because my brush had tons of water in it. So I'm going to take my mop brush and soften that and blend it just a little bit. That's going to get our first little layer down there. It's going to take a lot more down here for our shadow. I want to go around my handle here. I also want to go inside the handle, right next to that line. We're going to go along here. Now you can put some scroll work on the handle if you like. That area will remain light right there. We will definitely come back and repeat these steps, and we want to put a little bit back here. Give the look of kind of folding over the edge there. We'll be darkening that and highlighting it a little bit. So I'm going to take some of that Payne's Gray, but I'm going to mix maybe some of my vivid blue in with it. Just a soft color here. And I do want to put a little bit of something going on over here that's not going to be as dark, nor is it going to come out as far. A little bit of shadowing stuff. Mop brush, mop, 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 smooth, smooth, smooth. Mop brush needs to be dry. Okay, I need to get that dry so we can do that Payne's Gray again. I think I've got it dry, so I'm going to go with my Payne's Gray again. I'll put a little bit more in my brush this time, still working it with that water. And if you have a hard time going in big areas, you can dampen it first. You just don't want to have a lot of moisture in your brush when you do it that way, because you're just defeating the purpose there. You're just continuing to add more water, and then it's just going to cause all kinds of problems. So let's soften out. You want to soften on these outer edges first, then come in here and tap that. Clean it on a wet spot, dry it on a dry spot. A little bit of hard line there. Let's see if I can take the water edge of my brush and dampen that, and then mop it out so it's not quite so hard. I'm not worried about that little line there. Not an issue. Okay, I'm going to take this Payne's Gray and blue mix, and I want to go, this is where you might want to get a smaller brush. This bigger brush might not do me any good here. It's going to make it really wide. I just want to put a little bit of color right next to that blue. Payne's Gray and vivid blue mixed together. Use a small angle brush. I'm up on the very tippy toe of this brush, and then gently smoothing it out with the water edge of my brush. Just creating a little bit of a shadow on this lip to make it look like it's a little bit higher. Oops. Payne's Gray and vivid blue. Use that water edge, smooth it out. Take it to a much smaller line there. And back to where we started, right there. So that gave us a little bit of shadowing there. Not a whole lot, but hopefully enough that as we add more shadows on here, it will all work out. Okay, I want to repeat the shading up here again. That was our vivid blue and our Payne's Gray, and plenty of water. Keep it light, soft, not too dark, okay? We're just going to go right next to the cup here and work that. A little bit of shadow right there. Mop brush. Where's the mop brush? Mop it very lightly, very softly. It will blend it and soften it out at the same time. Okay, that looks pretty good. We're going to go down here and redo the Payne's Gray. I've still got a little bit of that blue in my brush, but that's okay. This needs to be much darker down here. So I definitely want to get a little bit more paint in my brush this time. Ooh, that might be too dark. Maybe not. Take it all the way to the blue rim. Don't stop it short. It can go over that blue rim. This is all our shadow edge down here. Okay, I think I might add just a tiny little bit of black into that. Work it in so it's nice and soft. I don't want it to become too harsh here, so I do want it just a scooch darker, maybe right through this section. Alright, that was just adding a little bit of black in there, so I need to get a little bit more of that Payne's Gray. And go around my handle here. Let's put a little bit behind it here. All right, we'll have a little bit of shadowing from the handle right there. So we want that area to be a little bit darker. Again, I'm going to mix in a little tiny bit of black in there. So you'll start out with the Payne's Gray, and I would do it at least 3 times if your color value is pretty light. And if you're blending enough water in with your brush, it probably will be light. And then come back with a little bit of black mixed in there with it. And that is going to create our really cool too much water there, our really cool shadow there. I think that's going to look pretty darn cool. More paint. Kind of wasn't quite dry and I kind of wiped it off. So let me try and blend that a little bit. There we go. That looks like a pretty darn good shadow there for that cup. I am liking that a lot. So let's add some highlights on the plate and the handle now. Okay, I want to dry brush the highlights on the plate because I want the highlights to kind of stay right here in the center. Maybe make the plate look a little more like it's higher right there, you know, make it seem a little more decorative. So I'm going to load a dry scruffy brush. This is the same kind of brush we use in the background, only smaller. It's an encaustic brush. This one is 1/2 inch, I believe, is what it says on it. I'm going to remove a little bit of the paint onto a dry paper towel, and then I'm just going to dry brush a highlight through here. Now you can just do this with a regular old kind of worn out brush. It does not have to be this type of brush. Alright, so we're going to keep the highlight pretty much up here. We're going to highlight on the edge as well, but not with this brush. So a little bit more here, and then I'll finish out with just probably a round or a flat brush, where I might need it a little bit more. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to grab a flat brush to highlight on the handle, and we'll probably highlight on the outer rim as well. So on the handle I'm going to do, and I do need to repeat the shading here, so I'll start with the highlight here and here, a back-to-back float right here and here. And we need a little bit of highlight right on that edge right there. Okay? And then I'll grab my round brush. Let me see if I can get that shading on the cup handle real quick. A little bit darker. Goes along here. Back here on this edge. Alright, round brush. I'm going to take some white, add a little bit of water to it. We're also going to do this on the rim of the cup when we get to there, but for now we're just going, okay, that was too much water, I think. I'll wick out some of that water. I'm just going to lighten. We don't have to do the whole edge, just a highlight. We can do a hit and miss kind of thing. Maybe there's a little bit in there, but there's, I like to take my finger and drag it out. Now we're not going to put a highlight way down here. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. I could add a little bit of blue into that, keep it from being so bright. But this will fade down in here because white just does. Okay, so down there I want to darken on the blue edge. So I'm going to take my Payne's Gray and maybe a tiny little bit of black in there, and we'll just loosely darken this. Get that edge dark as well. Back into my white. And I'm going to highlight through here a little bit better. Now down here in the shadowy area we can have a little bit of reflected light down here, so maybe a little bit is hitting here or here, maybe around that thing. We don't know, it's just got a little hit on here of some reflective light, okay? But I do want to repeat this up here. Not do as much as I did, but in these areas where I put white, I do want to put a little bit more. Okay. let's do that back-to-back float on the handle. Side load some white. Back to back. That means we flip the brush over and the white area touches the white area. And then we smooth that out. And then we need highlight down here. Ooh, okay, or a lot of highlight. A little bit along there and a little bit along there. That's going to bring our handle a little more forward. I think I completely covered in that line on that handle, so let me at least give it an outer edge or something. Something where we can see the edge of the blue. White really likes to just suck down into the project, so honestly, you can do the white as many times as you feel like you need to bring it out on top. Okay, so now we're going to I need to put this shadow back in here. I'm losing it. We definitely want that handle to look like it is turned. So if we're not getting that turned effect, we've got to adjust some colors somewhere. So right here, where it touches the cup, that definitely needs to be dark right there. Sometimes tiny areas require the most work. Okay, that looks much better. And then if you feel like this highlight needs more, you can just paint a little in there. So I'm going to call the saucer part done. Okay, I've drawn in what I want to do with my coffee decorations in here, and I'm going to paint this in with some light buttermilk. So we're just going to do a fancy little area in here, and this may change as I paint it in, but for now it's kind of got a good vibe going. This is going to be one of those fancy cups of coffee. Okay, so I got a first layer on here. We'll definitely want to do a second layer. Oh, too much water in my brush. So once you have your first layer done, if you're not putting on really thick paint, it should be dry so that you can go back to the top part and start adding in a second layer. And this is just with light buttermilk, and you can make any design you want inside your coffee. You could do a heart, and then have thinner lines coming out from the heart. I've seen some really fancy stuff when I went online to check. I think I want that to be a little more rounded there. A little more rounded coming up this way. Up to a fine point. There we go. I want to have them come up to a pretty fine point up here, not stop bluntly because, you know, that's how it will be in the coffee. It will have this fine little line coming up like that. And these two kind of have a little gap in it, which makes it fun. Okay, so that's our fancy little design in our coffee. So let's create some little bubble effect around this. All right, before we start adding our little bubbles in here, first thing I'm going to do is erase my lines that I didn't cover up with paint. And get them off of here and out of the way. And we're going to put out some milk chocolate and some burnt umber. These two colors. The first thing I think that I would like to do with my milk chocolate is create a light little layer of it. So I'm just going to side load my brush instead of filling it completely with paint. That way, if I need to create some smoothness or lighten something up, I can. And I want to put a little bit of this around what we painted and start creating a little bit of... I'm not going to worry too much if I get this on what I painted, unless I get tons on there, because we're going to have all these little dots coming in and around and kind of on that frothy stuff right there. So this is milk chocolate that I'm using right here. And it's going to look a little choppy. Don't worry about the choppy stuff. I'm just up on the tippy toe here. You can go in with a round brush if you can't maneuver a bigger brush in and around this stuff. So this is just going to darken up our coffee area, and it doesn't have to be complete and solid coverage. If we still see some of that light cocoa in there, great. Just doing a little kind of dabbing stuff in here, and we can make it choppy. No problem. No problem. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool right there. I'm going to touch up one place on here, although I really technically don't need to, so I'm not going to, because we can have a little bit of this cocoa or whatever color coming onto our foamy stuff just a little bit. So actually, I think I might go ahead and do that. Create just a tiny little washy side load of cocoa. And I'm going to put this a little bit on some of our frothy stuff. Not everywhere, just here and there. Just a little light wash of the cocoa. You know, where it's starting to smooth out into the coffee a little bit. This is just the lightest of layers here. Alright, that looks pretty good. Just a tiny little kiss of that cocoa on the white areas. Okay, before we start adding our little dots and details on here, I'm going to take some white with my little round brush and lighten up some of this froth, because some of it will be pretty light. The part that hasn't quite blended with any of the coffee yet. So I'm just kind of dry brushing some white onto our frothy areas here. Just a hit and miss kind of thing. Okay. Well, that's alright if we get out because we've got all these little bubbles we're going to be putting in here. So I'll put a little bit through here. And you can go back and brighten those up because you know how white is. It just fades in there. And just give a quick little second little layer on there. Okay? So we should have a little bit of dimension going on with our frothy stuff now. With our base color, a little bit of that cocoa and a little bit of white on there. We're going to start adding all these little dots on here. So let me see what I did with my... I don't know what I did with them, so let me grab some more. Okay, I've got a couple of toothpicks here. I'm going to zoom you in just a little bit here on this coffee because we want to make all these little dark areas that we can turn into little bubbles. So we're just going to start all different sizes. I'm just using a toothpick. You can certainly use a stylus to do this as well. This will probably be the most tedious part of this whole painting right here, is adding all of these and then trying to add a little lightness around them so they actually look like bubbles and not just little dots in here. So we're going to work it all out. Now occasionally you can pick up the milk chocolate and add some of those. It's going to blend a little bit, so if you don't want it to blend, wipe off and then pick up milk chocolate and you can add some of these in. You could also pick up some cocoa and add some of those in. So vary the little dots and don't make them all the same, or actually you could probably pick up light buttermilk and put some of those in there and create a few light ones, especially next to the frothy part. Just create, and this will definitely take the longest. So on those brown ones, if you brown ones are small enough, you can kind of dot on top of them. Wipe your toothpick off every now and then. Fresh paint is best for this technique. I did not put fresh paint out, so I probably will have a little bit of issue here and there. But we're going to fill this whole cup with all these little dots of these three colors, varying colors. Okay, so I'm going to go down here and put a few lighter ones down here. The darkest part of the coffee will be down here. We're going to shade that once we get all these little foamy things put in here. And just kind of vary your colors. Wipe your toothpick off as it builds up paint, because once it starts building up it really won't release the paint very well. Okay, and we're just going to fill all these areas. We're pretty much going to fill this whole thing with these three colors. So I'm going to keep them a little bit lighter close to this and up here at the top where our highlight area is. So this will definitely be the part that challenges you the most. Again, you don't have to do this part. If you just want to do some swirling action in your cup of coffee, then go for that. I'm making it like a mocha. Cup of mocha. Peppermint mocha is my favorite. Okay, we want to make sure we go right up to the edges of those frothy areas, and you can pick up milk chocolate and then light buttermilk at the same time, and you can kind of get a little bit of that frothy stuff starting to work already. Milk chocolate, then dip into light buttermilk if it's fresh. Mine's not fresh. I'm definitely going to have to put some fresh out here. Light buttermilk. You can go up on the frothy stuff, add a few up in there. Don't limit yourself here. And just keep it going. Alright, so this will be the most time-consuming and tedious thing of the whole painting, but it will definitely be worth it. So don't give up. If you need to take a break, go take a break. Starting to look like some coffee now. Okay, just keep going. You're doing great. You're doing great. Lots and lots and lots and lots of dots. Seems like they will be never ending. Super darn cool. If I get some too bright or too dark, I'm just going to come back with a lighter or darker color and help kind of take them down. Looking good. Double dip. It's okay to double dip. Put a few darker ones up in here. We just need so many dots. Just so many dots. And you can go with the stylus and get a little bit bigger bubbles on here. I'm going to go out here on, okay, that was a lot, on some of these darker ones, and just try and tap a little lighter on there to highlight a bit. All this little frothy stuff. I love it. Alright, I want a few more white ones, or buttermilk ones, I guess, in here. This will be the longest part of the video, I think, doing all these little dots. Still just using a toothpick. If you like doing dip dots, this will be very fun for you. You could skip all the dots and just try and do a little bit of soft blending into the milk chocolate instead of doing the dots, and make your coffee that way as well. So it doesn't have to be all about the dots. But I think we're getting there. I'm going to step back and look at it in just a second and see if I need to transition anything before we add our shading on there. Let me wide angle you out because then you can see it a little bit better. I think I need a few more. Ooh, that was a big amount there. I have some lighter ones. Okay. Alright, I think we might leave the dotting right there. Toothpick dotting, buttermilk, milk chocolate, and burnt umber. Alright, let's shade on the bottom and around our coffee a little bit. I'm going to use burnt umber. Burnt umber is a pretty transparent color, so it's perfect for adding some shading on the coffee. I want to make sure I stay off of my blue. And we're going to go right next to it and shade down here. I might have to add a little bit of black into that edge. And that might be a touch too much. So we'll mix a little bit of black in here. grab some milk chocolate and blend that in, and we'll make a little bit. Oh, that might be just too dark. Let's just do straight burnt umber here. A little bit of darkness here. A little bit through there. We want a little lighter edge there. Lighter over here. So I'll take my milk chocolate and a little bit of burnt umber, not burnt umber, light buttermilk, and see if this is going to work for a lighter coffee color. I don't want it to be too opaque, so you have to be careful how much of the white you put in there, because you'll cover up all of your hard work here. And then we want a little bit of this out through here. Maybe add a little bit of white in there. If I have any white that's left. Create a little bit of a highlight out here. A little bit of a highlight there. I need to darken down here more, so I'm going to use more black. Let's put it darker down through here, right next to that need it deep in there, so we're going to have to add straight black in here. Right next to that blue line, and then we can bring just a little bit of this up. Not a lot. Make sure it's a nice light color. Add some water to it. Keep it more sheer. And that's going to make the bottom of our coffee look deeper down in there. I love that. Put a little bit up here, just a gentle kiss of it, and then some over here. This is just straight black now. We did the black and the burnt umber mixed together. Now I'm just doing some black, a very sheer layer of black. Just using the corner of my brush, letting that blend in there and create that little bit of coffee highlight. Okay, I want a little bit of brighter highlight on my coffee, so I'm going to take some white. I'm not sure how well this is going to work, because I want to put white on the edge of the coffee cup, so I'm going to put just a little bit, kisses of white in here. Make that look a little bit shiny. Oop. Alright, let's add some highlight on the cup rim. All the way around it, hit and miss. Covered up my blue again. Okay, I do want to repeat that highlight just a little bit. Don't fill the entire area that you previously did. Just kind of go in the center. And then on your coffee, And you can put a little bit more in here. If you feel you need it. Perk that cream up just a little bit. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to call that little cup of coffee done. And we're going to move on to our flowers now. One more thing I do want to do to the cup rim to kind of separate it from the back is take some of the vivid blue and some black. Mix them together and use a detail liner. And we're going to outline a very thin line out here. Actually, maybe I want that on the inside. Yeah, I think I do want it to be on the outside. I think this is going to give it a little bit more depth here. It's a vivid blue and a little bit of lamp black. I'll probably have to come back in with my highlight here. Yep, let me come back in with some of my highlight. Right here. Take that down a little bit smaller. Definitely not the best circle here. Alright, I'm just touching up there, so I'm going to take my burnt umber and where was I painting? I don't even know where I was painting it. Take a little bit of that next to my rim. That's going to help define that and shape it. Tiny bit of the black was up here. And back to the burnt umber. Crazy thin line there. Milk chocolate. Okay, that looks good. I'm happy with it now. Let's start our little flowers over here. They shouldn't take too long. I'm going to take leaf green and celery green and mix them together. Get this kind of toned down green, and then just find where your stems are. Might add a little burnt umber in there with that. Tone it down a little bit more. Needs to be a little bit of a muted green. So just add a little bit of burnt umber in there. And we'll paint in our stems. And I've got a flower here. And it comes down to here. And let's see. Look at my line drawing because I can't see my lines very well. We've got one that is right here behind this one, so it's going to come down this way. Okay, I've got one here. And let's see, I've got one here. It's going to come more straight down. And then one that's coming from over here, over the plate. Okay, so that's our base color. That is a equal mix of leaf green, celery green, and burnt umber to get a nice kind of muted green on here. So now we're going to go in and we're going to go ahead and highlight and add some colors onto these stems and go ahead and shade them and get them all completely done before we put the little flower things on top. Okay, let's go ahead and highlight. So I'm going to take some celery and a little bit of light buttermilk. Probably 2 buttermilk to 1 celery, and I'm just going to dry brush down these stems. As soon as I get these stems painted in, we'll go in and erase the graphite lines that I clearly did not follow. Okay, this is helping you establish a little bit of which one's on top as well. Just using a round brush, skimming it across our stems. Okay. Go back and repeat if you need to. Okay, so that's our little highlight, our first highlight. We'll probably add one more brighter one on there. Okay, so I'm gonna actually wash my brush out. Now, this type of flower has a little bit of purple on the stems, but we're just gonna use burnt umber instead of purple because purple is not in my palette colors here, so we're just gonna put some burnt umber on our stems, and generally it's just about in the center of all of these stems, which is unusual. So just find the center area that you want of your stem. This one I'm going to, since it's a longer one, I'm going to add some down here. Not really much down lower, but you know, to mix it up a little bit, you can add some here and there. Just straight burnt umber. Don't really get too carried away with that. Let's add a little bit of a white highlight on here. Just a kiss of white. Just in a few places. Don't fill up all that buttermilk. We just want to see this in a few places. Okay, and now we're going to get ready to shade on these little guys. You'll probably want to go to a small flat brush, like a chisel brush of some kind. Let's see what my smallest size is. This one's an 8. I know I have a 6, so let me dig out my small one here. Okay, I found a 6. So I'm going to put a little bit of black out here, I think. Black or Payne's Gray, either one will work. I'm going to take my green and mix a little bit of black in with it. Get a dark green here. And I'm going to use this to separate my stems, if I can tell which one's on top. So if you can't, you just do it however works best for you. Put a little bit more black in there. Okay, that one separates that. And then this one here. Okay, what's next here? We got this one coming out from underneath this one. Here, a little bit more black in there. Right here. And then I'm going to take that green and black, that leaf green and black, mix it together, corner load it, and I'm going to go down. I'll try to go down a little bit more black because that really needs to be darker. Probably could use just a detail liner here, or a round brush. Let me grab my round brush, because that is way wider than I want it to be. Green and black. And I forgot to paint that separation in right there, where that one goes over that one, and it goes over it here. Keeping this on the left side. I'll probably come back and add a little bit more of that celery green on here because I feel like I've lost the celery green a little bit. Put some celery green back in here. I think that's going to help. Oh, I forgot to shade that one. So I'll come back in with some okay, that was bold. Bold and in your face. Alright, I've got an area here that needs separation. Where was it? I did it there already. Oh, I think I did it here, I just didn't do it very dark. Right here needs a separation on that side. Okay. Not really sure how well those are standing out. I really feel like they need more white now. So I'm really staying up on the tip of this round brush. You can go to a detail liner and do this as well, just using white. Yeah, I think I'm going to call that good on my stems here. I think they'll be okay. Alright, those look good enough, I think. So we're going to start adding our flowers on here now. Okay, I was originally going to make these flowers blue, but I think I might make them purple. Because the blue, I was going to do the blue to go along with the plate, but it might end up being too much blue. So let's do some purple, and we can put some purple on our stems then. So I've got Dioxazine Purple, Poetic Plum, Brilliant Purple. I'm going to be using a round and a detail brush, and Lilac Meadow, and then of course we'll need white. So I'll put all fresh paint out here. I think it will be helpful to have fresh paint. And we're going to start with a small round brush. So I'm going to go into my darkest purple here, and actually these two colors right here, this dark one and the next one, the Brilliant Purple, those are the ones we can kind of put that into our stems, and that's going to look so much better than the burnt umber on there. Just a little dry brush of this color, cover up that burnt umber. Okay, that looks better. Alright, we're going to start with our darkest color here. A little bit of water in it to thin it so we have nice flowy consistency here. My first layer, I'm not going to worry so much about how it looks. This one back here is behind this stem. Now, if you don't want to mess with trying to make it behind, you can certainly put it on top. But I am going to paint it behind because that's how I drew it. I'm going to keep a flat brush so I can clean up off of the stem there. And I'm just going to create some little pokey stuff coming out here with this dark color. Now you can't see that too much on camera, and they're all going to have these thin little pokey things coming out. I'm going to start at where I think the center is and just start pulling little pokey lines. And this first layer, like I said, I'm not too worried about the thickness of the strokes or anything like that. Now, as I build my other layers, I will be. I want them to be a little bit more looking nice. So we've got one there, and then we've got one here. It's a little bit lower than that one. So we'll paint that back one in, and then we'll paint this one in the front in, since it's laying over it. Alright, we've got one here. And these are just little balls, flowers, kind of spiky. I don't even know what kind of flowers they are, so I just thought they were cool looking. Okay, I'll do one here. Alright, then we got one here. This one you'll see all of the detail and stuff on it much easier because it's on a lighter background. So we want to take a little bit of care with this one. And all of these little hair things that come off of it are kind of spiky like that. Spiky, spiky. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to make sure I have the same amount of flowers as I do the stems, because that would be bad if I didn't. Okay, let's see if this Poetic Plum is going to show up on top of this color. I don't know if it will because it's a little dark. So I think what I might do is take Poetic Plum and my Brilliant Purple and mix them together. An equal mix, thin them down. And let's see if this will show up on top. They kind of show up. Okay, when we go to the next layer, I'll be going to my detail. I'll be going to my detail brush. So I can start making some finer detail lines on here. Alright, so there was our second little layer of purple. I mixed my Poetic Plum and my Brilliant Purple together. Probably 2 Poetic Plum, 1 Brilliant Purple. Now we'll go into just Brilliant Purple for the next layer. Alright, here we go. This is just the Brilliant Purple this time, and I'm using my detail liner. I want to get these nice fine lines here. And this still may not show up the best because we mix this color underneath it. So that's okay if we can't see this color totally. Okay, let's see. Can't remember if I did this one or not, so I'll jump over and do this one. Okay. Alright, so that was with the Brilliant Purple. to the next color. It's going to be Lilac Meadow. So I'll move some of it up here away from the others so I don't get the other mixed in with it. Now this will definitely stand more on top. And kind of make them going different directions. This layer you'll definitely see. So try to make it, you know, look a little bit more spiky. And your detail liner. Thin your paint to inky consistency. And they're all going to come up like this, except for a few that come down and out this way. But they're mostly all going to stay kind of going up like this, like a little ball of spiky things. And let them go in different directions, spike out. So I'm coming down here. This is really dense here in the center. It's a really tight, tight, tight area. Just keep going. Just make it all spiky. Alright, let's go over here and do this one. A little bit more water in my paint. And you can take this detail liner and come back in and add some of the other layers. Well, I really boogered that up right there. Let's take it off and try again. Okay, that looks pretty good with that color. I'm going to mix white with this color to get our next color. So I'll just equal mix it here. Actually, I'll add a little bit more white. So probably 2 whites, 1 pink. And not a lot of these need to go in. We'll come back with some just white ones. Okay, let's do one more layer of just white. We'll do some wash over them, shade on the stems, and then create cast shadows. And then we'll be done with this project. Okay, we're going to go with white I'm going to thin some white. And I'm going to use this sparingly. Just a few. I'm going to keep it more towards the top and the right side. I feel like that's where our highlight is. And you can repeat this white a couple times if you need to. Not like that at all. Okay, so that's our highlight with the white. Now we're going to create a little wash and put on the base of these. We're going to darken at the stem. So let's do that first. We'll darken at the base of the flowers with that green and black mix. Dark green right here. Just kind of wiggle a little bit of that where it needs to go. Right next to the flower bud. A little wiggle and a jiggle. Okay, now we're going to create a little wash on here and brighten them up, and I think I want to use the Brilliant Purple. So I'm going to add some water into my brush, create a nice thin layer of paint, and we're going to put this, that one I need to shade anyway. We're going to put this at the bottom, not at the top where we put our highlight. It's going to be like more at the base of the flower. Okay, create a little bit of purple on there, and then that one I want to shade a little bit of black plum, maybe add a little tiny bit of black to it right here and right here because it's behind that. And then we can put a little bit of this shadowing right here. Add a little bit more black to that. Create some kind of shadowy stuff on that one. I might come back with my wash a second time. It's just a wash of Brilliant Purple. Okay, so those look pretty good. I like those flowers. So now we just need to create some cast shadows and we'll be done with this project. Okay, so I'm going to take my black and side load a nice washy color of this. And I actually was going to put it on the left side, but I think I'm going to put it on the right side. And just create some shadows in here. This is with black. I'll have to put some over the plate, so I'm going to make it a little bit more sheer. And then I want to put a little bit here around the flower, and we can do the same thing out here. Create a little bit of shadow out here with them. Just a little pitty pat of some black. Okay. I think that will finish up this project. And I have such a huge mess here on my table, so Let me clean off so I can get this in full camera shot for you guys. I love how this turned out. I think it turned out so cute. Let's zoom out, because when we zoom out, it always gives us a much better effect look at the whole piece, and I think it turned out great. You could definitely brighten up those stems a little bit more. They still feel a little dark. Okay, how about some, what is this? This is matcha green. This is pretty bright. Let's see if I'll like this on here. Where's my small round brush? There it is. This is pretty bright, so I may not like this on here, but then again, may be exactly what it needs. A little bit of brightness to go with those flowers, I think, even though the stems on these flowers were pretty dull and muted. I think a little pop of green on there is going to help. Okay. I think that helped bring them a little bit to the forefront, so I'll put that instruction in the packet. Just a little dry brushing of matcha green at the very end. Look at that. Doesn't it look delicious? Our cup and saucer looks so real, like we could pick it up and drink that fancy little cup of coffee. I absolutely love this project. You can go in and add some of your purples, maybe the dark purples, into your background if you wish to bring that color into the painting anywhere. Just create a little bit of color and put it in there. I would not overdo that color at all. Just a little kiss of it here and there that you may or may not see in the end. Totally up to you. Totally up to you. You know, take it down with your finger, grab a baby wipe if you get too much. Just kind of take it down. This baby wipe's almost completely dry here, so it's probably not going to do much of anything. But you can take down any of these colors you put in the background with a baby wipe. And again, these flowers could be blue. The picture that I found of these flowers were actually blue, and I was going to paint them blue to kind of go with the plate, but then I kind of thought that might not go too well. And you could add a lace doily under here, a napkin underneath it. You could just have a lot of fun with this particular painting, or just paint the cup of coffee by itself. But you guys have fun with this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you painted it. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up, like, share, and comment. It all helps my YouTube channel to grow. And I appreciate every single one of you that love to paint my designs. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.